You are watching A News. I'm Leila Masimova. Here are the top stories for today. Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces agrees to integrate into Syrian state institutions. People celebrate the agreement. Zelensky meets Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia ahead of US-Ukraine talks set for Tuesday. 2 killed during the largest drone attack on Moscow, Russian officials say. And a significant step towards national reconciliation, the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces and the Damascus government have signed a landmark deal to integrate the SDF into Syria's state institutions. The deal promises a ceasefire and transfers control of key infrastructure in northeast Syria to Damascus.
The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and the Damascus government have signed a landmark agreement aimed at integrating the SDF into Syria's state framework. The agreement, signed by interim President Ahmed al-Sharaa and SDF commander Mazloum Abdi, includes a cessation of hostilities. It grants Damascus control over crucial infrastructure in the SDF-controlled northeast, such as oil fields, border crossings and an airport. While the deal marks a step toward national unity after years of conflict, it leaves unresolved the integration of the SDF's military forces into Syria's defense ministry. This accord comes amid ongoing tensions in Syria, particularly after the ousting of former President Bashar al-Assad in December 2024. Celebrations erupted in Qamishli and Damascus as Syrians expressed hope for a unified future.
The people needed an agreement like this. The world is tired of displacement and war, so we are happy with this agreement because it will bring peace to a new democratic Syria.
We are happy for all Syrians. Thank God some have returned. We are waiting for the rest who haven't returned yet. The doors are open and the hearts are open. We don't want anyone outside. We all want to return to Syria.
The agreement's implementation is expected by the end of 2025, though its long-term impact remains uncertain.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he welcomes interim Syrian President Ahmed Shara's commitment to punishing those who acted outside the law. He says he's advising Syrian authorities to help ease tensions. It's after more than 1,000 people were killed in recent clashes.
Turkey is using its influence to help curb the violence in Syria. Ankara has reiterated its support for the interim president. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is using diplomatic efforts to ease tensions in the region.
We are taking the necessary measures to prevent any developments against our country. We are also making the necessary suggestions to the Syrian authorities to quickly leave the tense atmosphere behind. We welcome President Shara's moderate and calming messages, as well as his determined messages that those who violate the law will be punished. Since December 8th, Mr. Shara has been following an inclusive policy without falling into the trap of revanchism. If this continues to grow stronger, it will thwart the games aimed at Syria.
Bunun güçlenerek devam etmesi Suriye'ye yönelik oyunları bozacaktır.
Erdogan further expressed confidence in the Syrian people, stating that they would not allow their country to be fragmented or dragged into instability. He reaffirmed Turkey's stance as an ally bound by destiny to its neighbors, saying that Turkey doesn't concern itself with ethnicity, religion or sect, whether in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon or elsewhere. The Turkish president also criticized efforts over the past 14 years to spread Syria's conflict beyond its borders, reiterating Turkey's steadfast position against such provocations. Meanwhile, according to a war monitoring group, heavy clashes between forces loyal to deposed President Bashar al-Assad and Syria's new Islamist rulers have resulted in more than 1,000 deaths, mostly civilians, in recent days.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he had a good meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah on Monday. The talk between the two leaders took place ahead of international discussions between the US and Ukrainian officials to resolve the war.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he appreciates Saudi Arabia providing a crucial platform for diplomacy. He says he had a good meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah on Monday. He made the comments on social media. Zelensky says they addressed all key issues on the agenda, both bilateral matters and cooperation with other partners. He also noted that Saudi Arabia's desire to expand economic cooperation and invest in Ukraine is highly appreciated. And the Crown Prince emphasized the kingdom's support for international efforts to resolve the Ukraine crisis and achieve peace. Saudi Arabia has already facilitated prisoner exchanges and hosted talks between Moscow and Washington last month. This meeting was held ahead of talks between US and Ukrainian officials and is the first official session between both countries after Zelensky's unsuccessful White House meeting with President Donald Trump. Washington hopes these discussions will lead to significant progress toward ending the Russia-Ukraine war.
Meanwhile, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed regional and international developments in a meeting in Jeddah on Monday. The Secretary thanked the Crown Prince for hosting U.S. talks to help resolve the war in Ukraine. Rubio also reiterated Washington's commitment that any solution to Gaza mustn't include any role for Hamas. They also discussed the situation in Yemen and Syria. The United Nations is calling on Israel to lift restrictions on humanitarian aid for Gaza. More than 2 million Palestinians are facing a worsening crisis. For the past 9 days, essential supplies, including food and medicine, have been unable to enter the region and the electricity has been cut.
The humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate as Israel's blockade on aid deliveries enter their 9th consecutive day. More than 2 million Palestinians are facing severe shortages of food, medicine and electricity. The United Nations are calling for the restrictions on aid entering Gaza to be lifted.
Nothing. I mean, there's been no goods coming in, no trucks coming in. I've not heard that humanitarian workers were not allowed to go in, but no goods have been coming in. And I mean, we again call on all the parties to live up to the obligations that they had agreed to. We want to see the humanitarian aid return.
Israel claims the measures are necessary for security reasons and imposed them after Hamas rejected an extension of a ceasefire. Since the beginning of March, Israel has cut off the flow of food, medicine and fuel. Israel also says it was cutting the electricity, which aid groups warn will deprive Gazans of access to clean water.
The electricity cut is to the desalination place and not to the private individuals, and the water should not be affected from that water consumption in Gaza. And how long it will take continue, I do not know to tell you at this stage.
Filipe Lazzarini, the head of the UN Palestinian Relief Agency in Gaza, warned that if the aid restrictions continue, the Strip could face another hunger crisis.
I don't know what the real intent is, but whatever the intent is, it's clearly a weaponization of humanitarian aid into Gaza. If you block all the entry point, you create a situation of where you use basic humanitarian assistance and food as an instrument to achieve a political goal or a military goal, which is contrary to any international humanitarian norm.
France, the UK, Germany and Italy have joined the UN in calling for unrestricted access for humanitarian aid to Gaza, stating that it is a matter of international law.
Moscow says Ukraine has carried out what appears to be its largest drone attack on Russia's capital early on Tuesday morning, killing at least 3 people and injuring at least 9, according to Russian officials. Moscow's regional governor, Andrei Vorobyov, confirms the assault began at 4 a.m., damaging several apartments and forcing evacuations. More than 90 drones were shot down over the Moscow region, as Mayor Sergei Sobyanin claimed around 70 drones targeted the Russian capital. The attack disrupted transport, halting flights at Moscow's 4 main airports and 2 other in nearby regions. Rail infrastructure in Domodedovo was also damaged by failing drone debris. Greenlanders are heading to the polls today to vote in the country's general elections. The country is divided on whether to stay with Denmark or become independent, since US President Donald Trump showed interest in wanting control over the world's largest island. Joining the Danish territory in 1953, Greenland controls domestic affairs but relies on Copenhagen for defense and funding. While the most Greenlanders support independence, opinions vary on timing and economic impact. More than 40,000 people can vote out of the country's 57,000 on the island. Clashes between the M23 rebels and government forces have left many people dead in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The fighting happened in a village on North Kivu province over the weekend. Chris Ochimranga reports from Kinshasa.
The fighting broke out in Nyabiondo village in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The United Nations and a local NGO say between 13 and 40 civilians were killed as government forces battled the M23 rebels. The fighting is in violation of a recent United Nations Security Council resolution that called for a ceasefire and the withdrawal of the rebels from all occupied territories. The M23 rebels are now in control of the village, which is about 100 kilometers from the city of Goma. It leads to the strategic town of Walikale, which is rich in minerals. The rebels intend to overthrow the government of President Felix Tshisekedi. Congolese authorities and UN experts accuse Rwanda of backing them and plundering the DRC's mineral resources. Rwanda has denied the charge and in turn accused the DRC of supporting a Rwandan militia group known as FDLR to destabilize its country. The fighting has claimed thousands of lives and displaced more than 3 million people since 2021. A peace initiative called by African leaders is supposed to be held soon to try and end the conflict. Chris Ochamringa, A News, Kinshasa.
A passenger bus has overturned on a highway in southern Mexico, killing 18 people and injuring dozens, according to officials. The accident occurred on the Mitletown-Tepic highway near Santo Domingo Narro. The cause has yet to be determined. Footage shows emergency crews working around the wreckage, with bodies recovered along the roadside. Investigations into the cause of the issue and any potential responsibility ongoing. The devastating floods in Bahia Blanca, Argentina, have led authorities to announce 3 days of national mourning. At least 16 people have died as a result of the disaster, and rescues continue searching for the missing. The government says that all of the resources will be mobilized to help the victims.
A 3-day national mourning was declared in Argentina after a year's worth of rain fell on Buenos Aires' major port city of Bahia Blanca on Friday, killing at least 16 people. Rescuers continue searching for the missing. However, fears are growing that the death toll will rise. One of the most tragic incidents was when 2 little sisters, aged 1 and 5, drowned along with their mother after climbing onto the roof of a minibus to escape the rising waters. All of the neighborhoods were submerged and thousands of people were left without power.
2 nights. On the first day, the water rose to this height. There is the mark on the door. It ruined everything. We lost the merchandise we sell at the port. We have a food cart. It toppled everything. The freezers. It was a disaster.
The government has pledged to allocate 10 billion pesos for emergency relief. That's nearly €500,000. President Javier Milei's office states that all sectors of the national government will work to help the victims for all Argentinians during this difficult time.
We're all right because we're alive, which is most important. I honestly thought we died that morning. It was horrible. In seconds, our house flooded. My husband went to get a ladder, and as he returned, the current was there. Water came from everywhere. We were saved because he tied a rope to the shed and the car.
Many churches, sports clubs, railway stations and foundations have been converted into aid collection points for essential supplies. In the southwest Buenos Aires province, non-perishable food, drinking water, clothing, shoes, hygiene items and cleaning supplies are being collected for the flood victims. Volunteers say that some collection points have exceeded expectations. The Nuestra Señora de Carcupe Church in Cabalito has been accepting donations since Sunday morning. A truck is expected to depart for Bahia Blanca on Tuesday or Wednesday to deliver aid to those people affected by the devastating floods. Experts warn that the disaster highlights worsening climate risks. Although Bahia Blanca has previously faced deadly storms, officials say this flood is among the worst in the city's history.
A devastating landslide had struck Bolivia's capital, La Paz, and the Cordavisa neighborhood on Monday, displacing families and causing extensive damage. The disaster was triggered by months of heavy rainfall and has left residents scrambling to salvage belongings while authorities work to access the full impact.
A massive landslide has hit the Cordavisa neighborhood in La Paz, Bolivia on Monday, causing widespread destruction and displacing dozens of families. The landslide, triggered by heavy rainfall over the past year, left many residents scrambling to salvage their belongings, including refrigerators and furniture.
When we heard some noise coming from the window in the morning, all we did was grab our children, some clothes and leave. We thought it was going to stop or slow down a little so we could retrieve our things, but when we returned, they did not let us enter our house. Our things are still there.
Rescue efforts continue as authorities work to assess the full extent of the damage caused by the landslide.
Rain not only from this season but from years ago has been saturating the soil in this entire sector, and the trigger was this rainy season. As a result of the saturation of the soils, there was a mass movement.
The ongoing rainy season has so far claimed the lives of at least 40 people, with 7 others still missing. The heavy downpours that have plagued Bolivia since November have led to severe flooding, prompting ongoing warnings from officials regarding the risks posed by unstable ground.
Australia was hit by floods following the landfall of ex-cyclone Alfred. The authorities in Queensland rescued several stranded in flood waters.
Over the past 24 hours, rescue team in Australia has responded to more than 150 water-related incidents and evacuations across the southeast of the state, according to a statement from Queensland Fire and Rescue. Emergency services rescued 17 people from fast-moving waters overnight. Multiple flood warnings remain in effect for Queensland's Sunshine Coast after the downgraded ex-tropical cyclone Alfred left a trail of destruction across southeast Queensland over the weekend. Although it was downgraded from a Category 2 system as it crossed the coast, the aftermath of Alfred has devastated entire regions, with localized heavy rainfall causing sudden flash flooding. Over 300,000 homes and businesses were left without power due to the floods. Heavy rain from Cyclone Alfred's remnants flooded Australia's east coast as crews worked to restore power to over 190,000 properties. The storm, which reached the Queensland coast on Saturday as a tropical low after lingering for 16 days as a cyclone, led millions of residents to prepare for the worst. While Brisbane largely avoided the worst impacts, neighbouring New South Wales also felt the effects. Authorities reported one death due to the flooding and confirmed that 12 soldiers deployed to assist were injured in a vehicle crash caused by hazardous wet conditions.
The U.S. stock market has shed more than $4 trillion in value as investor concerns grow over President Donald Trump's tariff policies. The S&P 500 fell 2.7% on Monday, its biggest drop of the year, while the Nasdaq slid 4%, marking its worst day since September 2022. Market volatility has surged amid ongoing tariff disputes with Canada, Mexico and China. The S&P 500 is now down 8.6% from its February peak, nearing a correction. Analysts point to a shift in investor sentiment as businesses grapple with economic uncertainty. An initiative to bring green energy from the South Caucasus to Europe marked another step forward in Budapest. Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania and Hungary signed a joint letter to European Union Energy Commissioner aimed at securing a project of mutual interest status for the Green Energy Corridor plan. Bulgaria says it's starting the procedure to join it.
Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary and Romania have signed a joint letter on the Green Energy Corridor during the 10th Ministerial Steering Committee meeting in Budapest. This agreement strengthens the strategic partnership in the development and transmission of green energy, a pivotal initiative aimed at expanding renewable energy integration throughout Europe. Top energy officials discussed Azerbaijan's renewable energy potential, the Caspian Black Sea Europe Green Energy Corridor, and possible EU financing opportunities for the project. The session culminated with the signing of a protocol and a joint letter to EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jurgensen, requesting project of mutual interest status for the corridor. It was also agreed that Romania's Transelectrica would apply for inclusion in the EU's 10-year network development plan in 2025, with GECO overseeing the process. Additionally, the talks covered Bulgaria's accession to the Intergovernmental Agreement, granting the country authorization to integrate into the project. The participants also authorized the joint venture to incorporate Bulgaria's integration and fiber optic cable component issues into the feasibility study scope. The next ministerial meeting is scheduled to take place in Georgia. Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania and Hungary signed a strategic partnership agreement on the laying of the Black Sea Energy submarine cable with a capacity of 1 gigawatt and a length of 1,195 kilometers on December 17, 2022. Bulgaria announced its intention to join the project in June 2023. The laying of the Black Sea Energy cable is estimated at 3.5 billion euros and will take 3 to 4 years. The European Commission plans to allocate 2.3 billion euros to the project.
Iran will not engage in nuclear talks with the United States under threats or intimidation. That's what Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Bakai said on Monday in Tehran. His comments come after US President Donald Trump claimed he sent a letter to Iran's leadership proposing negotiations. Bakai denied Iran received such a letter, calling it part of a US psychological and media campaign. Iran remains in discussions with US parties to 2015 nuclear deal and says it may hold an expert-level meeting soon. Bakai condemned what he called US pressure tactics, stating that genuine negotiations must be based on mutual respect and not threats. Let's turn to Afghanistan, where tensions are rising as Pakistan moves forward with its mass deportation plan targeting Afghan refugees. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis joins us from Kabul with more.
Pakistan's Interior Ministry has announced that all Afghan citizen card holders, along with other undocumented foreigners, must leave the country by March 31st. This directive comes as part of a broader repatriation strategy that has already seen over 800,000 Afghans return to Afghanistan in the past 18 months. Pakistan currently hosts more than 2.5 million Afghans. Among them, approximately 1.3 million hold UNHCR issued proof of registration cards, while another 800,000 possess Afghan citizen cards. For now, this phase only targets ACC holders, but reports suggest that in the next phase, even those with proof of registration cards could be expelled. This decision is expected to further strain relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Over the past 17 days, the key Torkham border crossing has remained closed following clashes between border forces. Islamabad has accused Taliban authorities of carrying out illegal construction on Pakistani soil, an allegation Kabul firmly denies, insisting the work is taking place within its own territory. For many Afghan refugees, this latest development means further uncertainty. Humanitarian groups warn that Afghanistan's already fragile economy will struggle to absorb a sudden influx of returnees. With no formal reintegration plan in place, many fear they will face severe hardship upon arrival. For now, thousands of Afghan families in Pakistan are left scrambling to decide their next move as the March 31 deadline approaches. Tamim Bahiz at A News, Kabul, Afghanistan.
Researchers in London have developed an artificial intelligence tool that detects hidden brain abnormalities. It was trained on hundreds of patient scans, and it can now spot two-thirds of these tiny and invisible irregularities. The process speeds up diagnosis, which in turn provides access to life-changing surgeries.
You can see that we've got grey matter.
Scientists in London have developed an artificial intelligence tool called the MELD graph to detect tiny brain abnormalities that can cause epilepsy, often too difficult for standard MRI scans to identify. The team has spent 10 years developing this process. The device was trained on MRI data from more than 700 people with focal cortical dysplasia, which causes epilepsy. Known as FCDs, these can be hard to spot with the human eye, and half of these lesions are missed by radiologists. As well as finding these irregularities, it explains the cause. With this analysis, radiologists say they can quickly diagnose and be able to provide surgery that could potentially cure the seizures.
So we've made an AI tool to help diagnose hidden brain abnormalities in children and adults with epilepsy. And the crucial thing is, if you can find the brain abnormality, you can offer surgery which might cure the seizures. And what our AI tool can do is find two-thirds of those abnormalities that doctors might miss. And that's really important because it means that more children can get the best possible form of treatment.
Epilepsy affects about 1 in 100 people globally, with 1 in 5 cases linked to brain structural abnormalities. Although the tool isn't clinically available yet, the team has released the software as open source and is training clinicians and researchers on its use.
Thanks for joining us. Keep watching A News for the latest, and we'll be back before you know it.